Hi, and welcome back to the Shane Place series of the DC New Age of Heroes #1 issue reviews. So this is new challengers, as you see there. And like I said, it's the new age of heroes. I've seen it DC's the new age of heroes, and I've seen it the new age of DC heroes, even both ways from DC itself. So, but there you have it. Now, as we pointed out before, ostensibly this is coming from the pages of Dark Knight's Metal, which, was the big, crazy, weird event that DC had recently that, broke the source wall and is having all kinds of repercussions in the DC universe. Still not quite sure how I feel about it. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. But I have mentioned in other videos in this review series of the New Age of Heroes series, first issues, that the connection to metal is in some cases non-existent, some cases very tenuous, and in other instances very clear and very direct. It feels much more of a marketing ploy to say straight from metal than it does an actual good strong narrative through line, through everything. So anyway, there's that cover again. Check it out. Good looking stuff, right? Let me get up there a little bit closer on you. Good looking stuff. You got the big baddie there, who of course is mysterious, and we'll learn more about as we go along. And then the four members of the team that will be the challengers. And there's actually a fake out on this cover that we'll get to here in a minute. Now, if you don't know the challengers of the unknown, which this new Challengers is based on. And I think, other than the Terrifics, I think that this is the only New Age of Heroes series that has a really strong connection to existing characters from DC history. You've got, the Terrifics, of course, which have, Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho and Plastic Man, and then a different version of Phantom Girl. And then you've got the Immortal Men, where the Immortal Man is their leader and mentor and sort of their Gandalf. And then you've got New Challengers, which does have some direct connections and references to the Challengers of the Unknown. And the Challengers of the Unknown, if you're not familiar, are they were created in 1957 by Jack Kirby, for DC Comics, and possibly had a co-creator of either Joe Simon or David Wood. It's a little nebulous in the history that I researched, but they first appeared in Showcase #6 in 1957 for DC Comics, and then they went on to get their own series, and they've appeared in different series and forms and iterations and whatnot, throughout the decades, and in the newest, part of that history is of course the New Challengers. Now, it's basically 4 adventurers, and the concept was they survived some sort of crash or calamity. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, they should have died. There were 4 of them, and they all survived, and they were like, well, we're living on borrowed time, so let's band together and have adventures. And that was fine. I mean, it was... I like just a good solid. It doesn't have to have all this nuance and deconstruction, and as a creators and artists and writers, we have to crawl up our own butts and show everybody how amazing we are. So it was fine. They survived, and they're going to go have adventures. And they weren't supposed to be superheroes. Technically, they were adventurers. They were going to challenge the unknown and go out and explore and things. Now, of course, they did have superhero type adventures. But they were supposed to be more explorers and adventurers than they were outright superheroes. Now, it's a pretty well known piece of comic book mainstream comics trivia or whatever that the Fantastic Four was either directly or very strongly indirectly a template for. Let me back that up. The Challengers of the Unknown were either directly or very strongly indirectly a template for the Fantastic Four. And, you know, although the Fantastic Four over the decades has become very much a superhero team that does very superhero-y things and is very central to the Marvel superhero universe and myths and all that, they were initially explorers and scientists, and they challenged things. They wanted to explore things. And you know, and there were 4 of them, right? Now it was 3 men and a woman, whereas the Challengers of the Unknown were 4 men, and then later a woman joined later towards the end of the first run. But it's I don't know if it's a secret or not, but if it is, it's a very open secret that the Fantastic Four was, you know, based on, inspired very much by the Challengers of the Unknown, including, you know, Jack Kirby was a co-creator on both, if not the outright creator of Challengers of the Unknown. But anyway, enough history. So moving on, what did I think about, you know, this actual issue? You know, and actually before I get to that, let me take a moment. Again, there's the cover. I like to show these trifold covers that all of the New Age of Heroes have been doing. On the front cover shows scenes from, you know, the actual series itself. Different characters and things that might happen, and etc. And then the back side is part of that continuing huge, let me get you a good look at that montage that'll all, you know, all these different things will combine together, and you'll get a huge montage of all of the New Age of Heroes characters. So if you buy all of them, you can use the inside covers and put a big mural on your wall, if you so choose. Now it opens then, right, over the Himalayas, then, quote unquote, then. And you've got an airplane flying through very stormy skies, very rough looking area. And before I go any further, spoilers. So, you know, if you're not looking for spoilers, I would stop watching the video now, or maybe, you know, fast forward to the last minute or so where I sum things up. Anyway, you got this pilot who's like afraid, I want to get out of here, and his passenger who's looking kind of creepy. That's not Hush, by the way, even though it's a guy kind of in a trench coat with bandages all around his eyes. And if you notice there, one of his eyes is bigger than the other. I assume that's a clue to who this is, because they never come right out and say in this issue, and I don't think they've said in, I've read either issue up to 2 or 3, definitely at least one more issue I've read, and they don't say yet. But this is the baddie, and to the point where the guy wants to turn around, and the bad guy throws him out of the plane and takes over, and basically crash lands the plane where he wants to go. Another thing I want to show is the bad guy has this, and it took me a couple of reads to realize what that is. That's a bone. That's half of a bone. I'm assuming a human bone that has like blue markings on it that glow, and it's making that, you know, wom wom kind of noise. Anyway, so he finds something that he's happy to find, and then it cuts to now, and you have this machine that's spitting people out, and it spits out a woman and 3 men, who are all like, you know, why are we here? You know, what's going on? And the mystery of that is alluded to in this issue, but I'll just go ahead and say that I think the second issue makes it really clear. They are on borrowed time. They were all basically killed, or maybe plucked from where they were at the moment they should have died. So that kind of ties into that living on borrowed time from the original Challengers of the Unknown. So, you know, they each, this issue and the next issue, whatever, starts flashing back to one of the characters, you know, highlights a different character, and kind of shows how what happened right before they would have died. Maybe they really are dead. It's not quite explained. Right before they're kind of come out of this mechanical womb or whatever, and boom, pop into what's basically Challengers Mountain, the headquarters of the Challengers. And these people, they don't know who they are, or they don't know who each other are. They're like, whoa, 1 second, where was I? I was just about to, and now here I am. And they're suspicious of each other in some cases. There's, they're reacting in different ways. And then almost immediately, the Prof shows up. And the Prof, this is quote unquote the Prof, and he's sort of the leader of the whole situation. But come to find out, it's revealed pretty soon that he's not a leader of these four. He's sort of the leader of the whole thing. And they've expanded on, in this series, the Challengers concept. There's been a lot of Challengers, and there's this line of effigies of people that have been Challengers. And I guess when you're no longer a Challenger, which they kind of imply means you die, your effigy appears in this hallway. And there's the original. He says that's the team that, was the most prolific. And they're talking about the original Challengers of the Unknown as we know them. So the Prof isn't really evil like a villain, but, he's not very nice either. He's very pragmatic. Here's how it is. You're basically, you can do what you want, but if you leave, it's not going to go well for you. And in fact, one of the, he's like, hey, I got to send you on a mission. And this guy's like, I'm out of here. And the Prof's like, don't leave. And the guy decides to leave anyway. And he leaves the protection of whatever area they're in. And he basically dissolves and dies while they all watch. And they're like, ugh. And then almost immediately you see here his effigy shows up in that hall of, or that line of effigies. And another thing happens. You'll see as soon as he dies, somebody else pops in. Boop! There they go. And this woman pops in to replace him. So evidently there always needs to be 4 people on a team for whatever reason. So that guy dies. Boop! Here she comes. And there we go. So somebody else comes in that has to catch up really quickly on what's going on, and they're in the same boat. Like, whoa, what the heck is going on? Another thing they kind of did here that's neat, when they go on missions, when they arrive in this headquarters, they have a tattoo. Kind of see it there. She's looking. She's like, what's up with this tattoo on my arm? And that tattoo, when you leave to go on a mission, it runs down, like the color in it kind of runs down. And when that runs down, you're out of time, and I guess you die. Like what the fate that was supposed to happen to you catches up to you or something like that. So they have limited time on these missions. And it kind of sounds like the Prof doesn't really have control over that. That's just kind of how it is. And the more they... I don't know. I don't quite understand yet. The more... Like they can do things, or there's certain things that can make the time run down quicker, because it's not just a timer, it's like an energy level or something like that that's keeping them coherent and alive. Here's when they're in this sort of little pod that's taking them to their mission, and there's another very similar. This one's red, but it's kind of a bone looking thing with markings on it. And then they show up, and they're asked to investigate the quote-unquote end of the world, which, physically shouldn't be. And they're like, that's impossible, but that's what they're there to investigate, to challenge, if you will. And then it's, they're like, oh, what are we going to do? This big monster jumps on them. And then it kind of ends with the Prof talking to sort of a Skeets kind of character, like a Booster Gold Skeets kind of character. They're talking, and the Skeets robot or whatever is saying, these personalities aren't going to mesh, and blah blah blah. Anyway, and then it ends with this He's like, enough with the melodrama, da da da. And then the interesting thing is the prof pulls out that it's either the same one or a very similar bone thing. So is the prof the bandaged guy? What's the connection there? We don't know. And one other thing I'll point out on the prof when he's first introduced, and then and every time you see him afterwards, you'll notice that his eye has like a diamond pattern around it. And that's the same eye that was big in the under the bandage for that other guy. So I don't know. We'll see. Did I like it? Yes. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked New Challengers. I thought it was going to be one that I was just going to read to be complete on reading all the first issues of New Age of Heroes, but you know, it's going to make my reserve list for a while. I'll give it at least the first arc. Another thing that's interesting, now this is Scott Snyder and Aaron Gillespie are the writers. Andy Kubert's pencils, you gotta love Andy Kubert. Klaus Janson is inks, an absolute legend in comics inking. Works with Frank Miller a lot. But the interesting thing here is, if you'll see there, I don't know how well that's showing, it says Scott Snyder and Aaron Gillespie writers and Andy Kubert pencils, Klaus Janson inks. Every other New Age of Heroes first issue I've seen so far, or any issues in the box, it just puts all the writers and artists together and says storytellers, because they're trying to you know, give more emphasis on artist. That's one of the pushes at DC. So a lot of times the writer gets the big credit and then the artist is next, and so they usually say storytellers, but for some reason this one didn't do that. So anyway, yeah, it ends, you know, he pulls out that bone, there's that big dead thing, skeleton of a big dead thing, I don't know, and he's like we're close, wom wom wom. So, and then next issue it says the depths of the unknown, and you get a little clue there with that symbol that Aquaman may show up, and he in fact does. So there you go. That was New Challengers. I recommend it. I liked it. Like I said, I'm going to give it at least one arc to kind of build, but it's interesting. You know, they're giving a little bit of a cynical, kind of a creepy twist to the Challengers of the Unknown concept, but you know, I'll stick with it. It's not completely negative. It's not completely evil or anything like that. And I get the feeling from the way that the prof has explained things that a lot of it, he's not doing it on purpose. A lot of it's like, this is just how it is. You know, you've been given a new lease on life. You're on borrowed time, but here's how it is. It's like, I'm not trying to be mean to you. This is just the nature of things. So anyway, again, New Challengers. I do recommend it. If you've read it or have any questions or whatever, I'd love to get your questions and comments in the video notes. And please leave a thumbs up and a question or comment if you could. That helps me out tremendously. But we will catch you next time on Shane Plays. Thanks for watching.
Time's running out for the Challengers of the Unknown. Ace Morgan, Daredevil test pilot. Professor Mark Haley, master scientist and scuba expert. Red Ryan, famed adventurer and mountain climber. Rocky Davis, world champion triathlete. Brains, brawn, skill, and guts. They are the Challengers of the Unknown.